Okay guys, in this video we're really going to be looking at Desmos.com as a tool for us to be able to take our line drawings by hand and make them a digital image. So some things that we're going to be working on are things like how to restrict our equations so that they don't run all the way across the screen from left to right, but only between specific x or y values. Also looking at how to change the color of any line segments or exporting the final work. So the first thing I actually want to do is just kind of take a look at restricting our equations. So if you were to look at my line drawing image here, you would notice that our head here, up here is, the top of the head's at a height of 9, the bottom of the head's at a height of 7. It'd be really easy to write equations for both of these. Y equals 9 and y equals 7 would both be constant families of functions, and they would run left and right forever and ever through a height of 9 and also through a height of 7. The thing is, we don't want all of these lines here. We only want that line between here and here. So that is to say that if I were to write this equation y equals 9 and say, well, what x values do I want this for? I only want it between the x values of, if we look down the x-axis here, between 5 and 7. And it's kind of also easy to see from the points up here, but only between 5 and 7. So what we tend to do is we say, well, by the way, I only want it to be between 5 and 7, and the way we tend to do this is to write an interval this way. So apologize, I didn't mean to write a negative 5 here. 5 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 7. What this would essentially do is tell our audience that we're only going to have this line y equals 9 between x values of 5 and 7. So the neat thing is, because this bottom line on our head also is between 5 and 7, I could pretty much copy and paste this restriction in here, and I would get this restriction on our line. So if we hop over to Desmos, just to show you here, the first time you visit, it's going to ask you to click on Start Graphing. As a matter of fact, every time you visit, it's going to ask you to click on this. And what I would suggest is, in the top right corner up here, it says Sign In. I would ask that you sign in, and you sign in with Google. So now I'm already signed into Google, but you can use your Google credentials, to log in, and then it's going to know who you are. As a matter of fact, the other thing I'm going to have you do is I want you to click on, let me move this around here, this little wrench here. We're going to put it into projector mode. It makes it a little bit easier to see. And if at any point you're too zoomed in or you don't like the format, you can zoom out. So this looks a little better. Let's put in our y equals 9 and y equals 7. So y equals 9, y equals 7. And you notice that we got a couple of lines here, one at the height of 9 and another one at the height of 7, and they're both different lines. As you type these in, if I were to type in another one, y equals 5, it's going to keep auto-populating these with new colors, and you just got to kind of go with what they give you until you get them all in and you reassign colors. So for instance, what I want to do is restrict the domain on this top one here to be between 5 and 7. We're going to use our two cusps on our keyboard there. And then what we'll put in is exactly what we put in previously. Now I can fold open this little keyboard down here. It's kind of hard to see. Let me try to lift this up a little bit, see if it'll come up here. A little bit better. There's a little keyboard down here. When you click on it, all of this pops up. What I would love to do is type in 5 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 7. In other words, we're only going to keep x values, between 5 and 7. And as I put these in these brackets here, you're going to notice that it chops off everything outside of that domain. The neat thing about it is, this is something now that when I write restrictions on any of my other equations, I can just highlight, copy, and paste it in. And I can even modify this to be between, like 5 and 8, or 5 and 9, or go further left. If I wanted to go further left, I could say between, maybe 1 and 7 would look something like this here. So first things first, putting all your appropriate restrictions on your image is going to be important. If I were to do, say, for instance, this vertical line here, and this vertical line here, this would be x equals 5 and x equals 7. How might that look? Well, I tell you, put in all of your horizontal and vertical lines first when it comes to Desmos. But we have to put restrictions on these as well. So you're going to notice that I paste in the same restriction here as before. We're going to modify this, but in this instance, notice that I only want these vertical lines between a height of 7 and 9. So instead of trapping our x values between two x values, we're going to say y is trapped between these two y values. And right now it says y is between 5 and 7. We need it to be between 7 and 9. You're going to see that I'm able to restrict the height of this here. The only time that we're going to have to use y-axis restrictions on these is for vertical lines. But you can see that I put these restrictions on and have only kept the parts of this graph that I want. So let's say I've got the head of my figure here, which is looking pretty good. What I want to do next then is perhaps change the color of my restrictions or my equation. So if you click on this little cog right here, it pulls up in your edit menu, and at this point you can click on any of these colors on the left here. Maybe I want them all to be black. When I click on it, I have the option to switch the color. So once you put in all of your lines, you're going to notice that you have a lot of equations over here. It becomes hard to tell which one is which. So say for instance over here I have 3 black equations. Which one of these is it? You can always just go click on the line on your graph, like this one right here, and notice that on the left here it popped up as that's equation 2, whereas if I click on the top one, then it says that was your first equation. If I click on the right one, it says this was your fourth equation. It's always going to tell you which equation over here to go modify. In this case, there's only one purple one, but if I click on the purple one, I notice it's equation 3, and that's the one I still have to go edit and change to a black color. Okay. So for the last step here, we're going to look at exporting. Up by your name here, at least in the top right corner, you need to be logged in order to save your work. So Control S every time you make an update. But you're going to export, and instantly I want you to notice that it says share this link. We're going to copy this link, and essentially we're able to just paste that link into an email, and that would allow me to go and visit your graph. So anybody with that link can go and check out your work. So just remember, as advice, get all your vertical and horizontal lines down first, and then copy and paste in your restriction, but just modifying it to fit your given situation there. Once you get all your lines in with your restrictions, then go back and edit your colors that you want them to be, and then export your image using a link. Cheers.